Welcome to the garden as I introduce a new kind of vampire. Fledgling isn't your average vampire novel. This isn't the brooding count in a castle or the glittering high school heartthrob. No, this is something altogether more. Octavia. Here, the protagonist, Shori Matthews, wakes up injured, alone, and suffering from memory loss. She quickly discovers she's not a human girl, but a 53-year-old genetically modified vampire, Orina. The unusual catch, she looks like a preteen black girl, yet she's powerful, dangerous, and being targeted. From the first chapter, Butler flips genre conventions inside out. You're not just wondering who Shori is. You're questioning what she is, why she is, and what that means for every human she encounters. There's no fanged gothic romance here. There's a terrifying exploration of race, consent, power, and evolution. Let's talk more about genetic vampires and ethical bonds. Octavia E. Butler crafts a society of vampires that is deeply structured, scientifically plausible, and eerily elegant. The Ina don't simply drink blood. They form symbiotic relationships with humans, bonds that are physical, emotional, and mutually beneficial. But Butler doesn't stop at biology. She weaves culture, tradition, and political tension between different Ina communities, crafting a rich tapestry of customs, family hierarchies, and prejudices. The Ina aren't invincible either. They are susceptible to sunlight and interfamily violence. The introduction of genetic modification, that Shori is a black Ina designed to withstand sunlight, turns her existence into a social and political threat. Race, science, and survival blend here in one of the most unique takes on the vampire mythos ever written. Make no mistake, Shori is both predator and victim, vulnerable due to her amnesia, but powerful in instinct. And because of her childlike appearance, Fledgling doesn't flinch from disturbing territory. Relationships that challenge the reader's sense of comfort and raise sharp questions about bodily autonomy, maturity, and trust. The symbiotes, the humans who live with and feed Shori, are portrayed as willing, but their consent is a hot topic. Is it real when a bite from an Ina creates euphoria and addiction? Or is it a subtle form of biological coercion? Butler refuses to give easy answers, and that is her genius. Every character, from Wright, the human man Shori first bonds with, to the other Ina families who view Shori as unnatural, pushes us to see race, age, power, and belonging in entirely new ways. Adenrele Oho elevates the story. Oho doesn't just narrate, she embodies Shori, giving her a voice that is at once young, commanding, curious, and unsettling. Oho delivers the perfect balance of innocence and ancient awareness. Her pacing is intentional, her shifts between human and Ina characters fluid and textured. She gives weight to Butler's heavy themes without making the experience burdensome. The narration is crucial in making listeners feel the tension between Shori's physical presence and mental strength. It's this dissonance that keeps us leaning in, questioning what's right, what's real, and what's justified. When I read this, it felt like a tale for the now. Octavia E. Butler has always used speculative fiction as a lens on modern society. Fledgling is a sharp reflection on race and genetics. Shori's very existence challenges white Ina purity and supremacy. Her ability to walk in sunlight is seen as unnatural, a direct metaphor for how black innovation or survival is often seen as threatening by dominant cultures. Consent and dependency. The inner human relationship brings up real-world questions about addiction, loyalty, and whether mutual benefit can ever exist in unequal power dynamics. Memory and identity. Shori's amnesia is a metaphor for cultural erasure. Her rediscovery of self becomes a journey through trauma, legacy, and the power of naming one's identity. This is speculative fiction used as a scalpel, and Butler wields it with surgical precision. Fledgling is not for the faint of heart, but it is a must-read for those seeking fiction that provokes, disturbs, and enlightens. It makes you ask, what makes a monster? Is survival a justification for control? And what happens when the other is superior, not inferior?
Welcome back so that we get a chance to talk about this book. This is my first Octavia Butler book, Octavia E. Butler. Um, and I even researched her because I was so blown away by the beautiful journey I was taken on that was both a horror story and a narrative of culture that I could easily understand, sympathize with, and relate to. If you remove certain elements from this story, this could be written almost with the poetry of a Toni Morrison novel. But then you add in that fictional spin and you heighten it with this genetic modification, but you keep that same narrative, which in actuality is the same narrative that keeps being played out over and over and over again in the real world. But when it happens in this story, it is such a weird look at how no matter what you imagine it would be like to have superpowers or be a superhero and still, experience some of these gifts that you think the world would celebrate. It all comes back to what Sean Carter said, Jay-Z. Light nigga, dark nigga, poor nigga, rich nigga, still nigga. It is so glaring in this story that this mimics what he wrote about in the story of OJ. It's almost weird because it doesn't matter how you take this narrative and spin it, you also always have that overarching narrative of this cultural oppression. And at the core of this story, with all of her gifts, she is still hunted. She is still prey. She is still considered to be something that has to be eradicated and removed instead of appreciated and exalted when you understand that you have a community of Ina that need to survive, that need to understand their gifts. Then there's this whole other journey you have to go on as the symbiote. You have to look at the servitude of what it means to be a part of this community, build a community that allows this vampire to survive. I thought that was mind blowing to me because when you deal with it at its core and the hunger of a creature like that, it can't be sustained by one. And I like the review said, like the deep dive said, consent was a tad bit dubious. And there are several examples of it with her relationship as she starts to build this community. And then what happens to them as they have to migrate constantly. Such a brilliant, brilliant tale. I encourage you, if you haven't read this book, to take this journey. This is a good example of taking what is this long time lore, because Bram Stoker wrote Dracula in 1897. And look at the journey that this mythical creature has taken. And I would say that of all the journeys I've seen in both film and in books, this is definitely in the top five. So if vampires are your thing, stretch your legs over to this section of Afrofuturism because I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And again, please subscribe because I have such great stuff coming. And I am going on a vampire journey. I was thinking about sort of holding off until next month because we're in September now when I release this. And I was thinking about waiting till October and doing a whole spooky vampire monster journey because Lord knows I've got enough of those too. I have Monster International, Monster Hunter International, I think the name is. There's some great stuff in my library, but I just decided not to wait. I didn't want to wait because I think this is more than the tale of the vampire. she happens to be a vampire. And there's a significance to that as well. That as you read this, you're less impacted by her superhumanness and her otherness than you are relating to the fact that she's being hunted, that all of this is happening to victimize her community and her existence. I think that story hits way harder to me. But you tell me. I'd love to hear your responses in the comments. Love to talk about this. I'm also on Discord, hashtag 11 Goddess. I'm trying to definitely build our book club up so that we can have some great conversations because there's some great audiobooks out there. And dramatization audio or just a straight read with an excellent narrator, let's talk about it. I want to definitely hear from you. So until we meet next time, let me know what you're reading, and I will catch up with you soon.